Hi friends, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today I'm going to be showing you ILNP's Summer Nights Collection from 2020. So it's a little bit of an older collection, but I am also going to be sharing the brand new matte top coat as well. As always, I will save some more of my thoughts at the end after some comparisons. For now, let's just get into the swatches. The first shade is Downtown, and this is a soft, light purple jelly base filled with this iridescent shimmer that shifts from this yellowy gold to green in extreme angles. As you can see, this one is super sheer on the first coat where you barely see that wash of that purple base jelly, but you do get a decent amount of shimmer on your nails, so I feel like on one coat you probably could wear this as like a topper maybe, but for all of my swatches I'm going to be building them up in 3 coats just because that's how I would prefer wearing these. 2 coats you do start to get a little bit more coverage. You start to see a little more of that purple base color, but it's still really sheer. I think it would be a lot more passable if you just have much shorter nails with less visible nail line. So personally, I just prefer how this looks built up in 3 coats. You see more of that purple base color, so it just provides a better contrast to all of that yellow shimmer, but it's still not 100% full coverage by any means. You still are going to see some nail line even with 3 coats, which I think is pretty much expected for a lot of ILNP shimmers. No surprise though, I ended up loving this one, especially with more extreme kind of lighting where you see that flash to green and maybe even aqua. Next we have Pink Flamingo, and this is a peppy hot pink jelly base that's filled with this beautiful iridescent shimmer that shifts from green to gold to I think even pink or purple in extreme angles. You'll see what I mean later. But no surprise, this was another favorite from this collection for me. I just love the shade of pink. It is just so pretty. On one coat it has really great coverage that I feel like looked a lot more even than Downtown did. So I think this one is a little bit more versatile where you could wear this in 1, 2, or 3 coats depending on how much coverage or color intensity you want. Like, I personally really like how this looks on 2 coats alone, so if you're in a rush you can definitely get away with it. There is obviously some visible nail line though, so if that does bother you, you could do a 3rd coat and that helps cover it up a little bit more. I feel like because ILNP has these slightly larger shimmer particles, it's just a little bit more distracting and sort of blurring for your nail line. But obviously if this isn't enough, you could also just do a blurring base coat or a sheer coat of something underneath. So here in more extreme angles is where I saw that flash of pink. It's not super strong. I kind of wish it was stronger, but it's cool that it's there. Next up we have Skate Date, and this one is described as having a fun teal jelly base that has this beautiful contrasting orange iridescent shimmer that shifts to green in extreme angles. I ended up really loving this one, but let's backtrack a little bit, starting with the first coat. As you can see, it's not super impressive because it is just so sheer and not super flattering in my opinion, but it does have really great coverage. I think ILNP is just so consistent with their formulas where they just are really great across the board. They all apply super smooth and evenly. It does start to build up a little bit better on 2 coats, but personally I think it's just a little too sheer for me, especially without using a milky kind of base coat. So I definitely prefer this one built up in 3 coats, especially because you just get more of that fun teal base color. I think it is just so pretty, especially in contrast to that orange shimmer. It just reminds me of everything that I love about summer polishes. Like, this combination is just so beautiful, especially the shift in indirect light or more adjusted extreme angles of light where you see that green color popping. It is just so gorgeous. Next in the collection we have Pool Party, and this one is described as a vivid blue jelly base that has this intense vivid pink shimmer that shifts to gold in extreme angles. And even though this one is probably picking up a little bit blurple, I guess it could toe the line, but it does lean more blue in my eyes. So formula wise, this one performed pretty much the same as the others so far, where it has really even coverage even on the first coat alone. It's just obviously very sheer, but the second second coat starts to build up the base color a little bit more, so you get more of that vivid blue color coming through. And obviously it's already so shimmery and glowy, but you still see a decent amount of nail line. So even though this one is a little bit of a darker shade, it doesn't really have much more pigmentation, so I still would recommend doing a third if that bothers you. And again, I personally really like this one on 3 coats just because it intensifies that blue color. I feel like it just gives a better contrast to all that shimmer. And even though this one does have a really cool gold shift in extreme lighting, I didn't really love this one. I would say this is probably my least favorite from the collection. Next up we have Opal Sunset, and this one is described as a soft rosy pink jelly base with this beautiful iridescent shimmer that shifts from this yellowy gold to aqua in extreme angles. And as I'm sure you already know, as a Libra, as a certified pink lover, I am obsessed with this polish. This is easily my top favorite from the whole collection. Even though I have a lot of favorites, this is the one for me. I just love the soft pink base color. It is super sheer on the first coat, similar to Downtown, where it could pass as like a topper, I would say. But the second coat starts to build up that rosy, soft pink base color a little bit more, and I just think it's so elegant, so dainty and feminine. And I obviously love the gold shimmer in this. Gold shimmer in like a pink base is one of my favorite combinations, and this one does it so well. So even though the second coat I think looks really beautiful, it definitely is still really sheer, and even after 3 coats you still are gonna see a decent amount of nail line, especially in more like extreme angles, I guess. Like if you're looking at your nails head on, a lot of the shimmer covers that up, but it's still gonna be there, obviously, because this is such a light shade. And here it is with the aqua shift. It's a little subtle and kind of hard to see because of the glare, but it's so pretty. Next we have Drive-In, and this one is described as a deep purple jelly base with this iridescent shimmer that shifts from green to purple in extreme lighting. So this one is the darker purple from the collection, and it is just so beautiful. I'm also such a fan of green shimmer in a purple base. I think there's something so magical about that combination. So this one is definitely beautiful. You just need to build it up a little bit. As you saw on the first coat, it was definitely super sheer, where you barely get a wash of that purple color. So again, I feel like these could work as toppers, especially if you're layering them over similar base colors. That'll probably help with the opacity, but I think a lot of the magic with ILNP shimmers is when you start to build them up on their own. I feel like all of the shimmers and little hollow sparkles just layer up so beautifully in the jelly bases, and it just is so magical. So even though I think this one looks great on 2 coats, like I personally would wear this in 2 coats alone, I think it just intensifies the colors and shimmer so much more on 3 coats, while also providing a bit more coverage for your nail line. So this one looks great no matter what. And here it is in more extreme angles where you can kind of see that shift to purple. I would say this one is a bit more on the subtle side. So here is the full collection worn as a Skittle. I'm wearing 2 coats of each, and I have both Pool Party and Drive-In on my thumb. I just feel like those 2 base colors were the most similar out of all of them, but they're definitely different. But yeah, I'm wearing a clear base coat so you can get an idea of just how sheer these are. You see a considerable amount of nail line, but I feel like the coverage is still really great, where it's very even, so they're still passable, just totally depends on your preference. But even doing 3 coats, you still are gonna see some nail line, especially with a clear base coat. And if you do have visible nail line like I do, it's definitely the most obvious on the 2 lighter shades, Opal Sunset and Downtown, on my middle and ring finger respectively. But I think the other shades look really great on 3 coats, where the nail line is just kind of blurred, I guess, because of all of those little shimmer particles. It really helps cover that up. Either way, I don't mind how sheer these are. I love sheer polishes, and I think these are so magical. And lastly, I have the new Frosted Glass Ultra Matte Top Coat from ILNP. This is brand new and releasing this Friday, so I wanted to show you how this looks over the shimmers. Not that I would ever personally mattify shimmers, but I don't know, I feel like you just get a good sense. So this is how it looks after immediately applying it, and this is how it looks after about 2 minutes. If you're familiar with me and my channel, you know one of my pet peeves is when brands release a matte top coat, but it's not matte. It almost leaves a like satin kind of shine, but I want negative shine, and this one definitely has my stamp of negative shine approval. I was overall just really impressed with how fast this dried down, how matte it was. To be completely honest, I haven't done a full wear test on this, but I have seen a few of my friends who received this in PR say really good things about the matte effect staying after a few days. Normally the matte effect might kind of wear off with just general wear and tear throughout the day, washing your hands, using cuticle oil. So it might happen eventually, but even aside from that, I've heard really great things about the longevity of this top coat as well, which has been my experience with their other base and top coat. So I'm kind of not surprised that it's the same thing for this one. So if you're in the market for a matte top coat, I would recommend picking this one up. It's super cheap and I love the paddle brush. And here is the Summer Nights Collection lineup. No surprise, I am just so obsessed with this. I love wearing pink, blue, and purple, and especially shimmers, so what's not to love? So getting into comparisons, we're starting with Downtown and looking at it next to ILNP's Fairy Dust from last year's Fairy Forest collection. Even though that one has a strong orangey fiery red shimmer, I feel like the base colors were kind of similar, but there is more noticeable holo in Fairy Dust. So I do remember people mentioning that Downtown could be like a larger shimmer particle dupe for Mooncat's Curse of Calypso, which is one of my favorite polishes. They definitely have very, very similar vibes, but still subtle differences in their finishes, but these two are definitely much more similar to each other than Fairy Dust is. You can see even on the nail that the base color is a little bit darker as well, but the most obvious difference is the shimmer color. So Mooncat's Curse of Calypso, I would say, is a tiny bit more opaque and a little bit lighter too, but the main difference is the shimmer particle where it's finer in Mooncat. Then for Pink Flamingo, I of course had to see this next to Pixie Party from last year's Fairy Forest collection. I did a pseudo comparison of these two last year where I had a photo of Pink Flamingo next to Pixie Party, and I was pretty convinced that they were going to be dupes. Like, they look so similar, and don't get me wrong, they definitely are, to the point where I don't think you would need both of these. I would say that Pink Flamingo is just a smidge darker, or at least warmer than Pixie Party, where it almost has like a corally hot pink color to the base. And while the shimmer looks really similar head on, I feel like the biggest difference is how they look in indirect lighting, where Pixie Party has more of an obvious shift. I think the pink shimmer in Pink Flamingo kind of gets lost in the base color a little bit. So yeah, definitely very similar vibes, but not exact colors by any means. Then for Skate Day, I was immediately reminded of this older Noodles nail polish that I have called Stay Salty from a couple of years ago. It kind of has this aqua teal base color with this really beautiful orangey fiery shimmer, but there are also some hollow flakes in Stay Salty, so not exactly the same. They're just kind of similar in theory or description. You can see on the nail I'm wearing 2 coats of each, and Noodles is a little bit more opaque and also a bit brighter, while also having all of those little micro flakes as well. So yeah, unfortunately these aren't dupes. Next for Pool Party, I was immediately reminded of Mooncat's Mercury's Tears, which is another bright medium blue jelly base with this pink kind of shimmer. These definitely look like they could be dupes in the bottle, but they are not. And I was also reminded of Dom Polish's Get the F Off My Uterus, which was a charity polish. I'm actually not sure if this is still around anymore, but either way, it's another medium-ish blue kind of jelly base with this pinky fiery shimmer. So these are all really similar, especially in terms of the descriptions of the polishes, but on the nails I wouldn't really call any of these dupes. I would say Pool Party is the closest to Mooncat's Mercury's Tears, but Mooncat's is a little bit darker, and it also has this much more intense duochrome kind of shift where it goes to like green in extreme angles. The Dom polish also does shift, but it's more golden, but I feel like the shimmer particles almost look a little pearly too. Then for Opal Sunset, I was immediately reminded of Mooncat's High Fructose, which sadly was retired, I think, last year. It is this beautiful lilac pink base color with this really beautiful golden shimmer, so kind of similar vibes. And I also wanted to show it next to Essie's Birthday Girl, which is another golden kind of iridescent shimmer in a sheer pink base color. I knew that these weren't going to be exact dupes by any means, but I just thought that they were, you know, kind of similar. I'm wearing 2 coats of each on the nail, and I would say that Essie's is the most sheer, so I would say that's the most topper-like of all of these. Mooncat's has a little bit more opacity, I would say, but it's also just a little bit different in color, at least when it comes to the bases, because the colors of these shimmers, especially the shifts, I think are pretty similar. So if you happen to miss out on high fructose, I do think that Opal Sunset would be a pretty good alternative. And lastly, for drive-in, I was immediately reminded of Cirque's Night Fever from their discotheque collection. I thought these were going to be a lot more similar, but they are obviously pretty different. Night Fever is a lot darker of a purple base with a more blue shimmer head on, so definitely not dupes. Then I also thought maybe I could show this next to Mooncat's Into the Wishing Well, which was another sadly retired shade. This one's more of like a medium purple crelly base with more of a fiery orange shimmer, so also not dupes. The closest comparison that I have in my collection is with Cirque's Pixie Holo from their Far Far Away collection last year. This one has a periwinkle base color with a bright green iridescent shimmer, and there's also a ton of holographic sparkle in here, but it kind of does get lost in the shimmer. And I think Pixie Holo's a bit more opaque as well. So yeah, even though these are very similar color-wise, they still look really different where I wouldn't exactly call them dupes. So that wraps up my swatches and comparisons for ILNP's Summer Nights Collection and their new matte top coat. As always, I can't wait to hear what you think of these releases. Obviously, the Summer Nights one is a little bit older, and I'm sure so many of you already have this collection and have recommended it to me. If you had watched my best of ILNP video last year for like Black Friday, I was planning on picking up a couple of these shades, and ILNP was so nice enough to send me the whole collection, and I decided to wait until now to share them just because I feel like it's a little bit more seasonally appropriate. Like I said already throughout the video, I'm a big fan of these polishes. I just love their shimmers so much. I just think they look so magical. Like I have them all on right now. I'm wearing the same Skittle that I shared earlier in the video, and then this hand I have the 2 pinks and the 2 purples, and I just cannot stop staring at my nails. They are so pretty. I feel like this really is such a fun collection, especially for summer, but I think it can easily work for spring as well. And as far as the matte top coat goes, I definitely am a fan of what I've tried so far. I'm sorry that I haven't done like a full wear test. I just wasn't in the mood, to be completely honest, to be wearing matte nails. I did kind of have the expectation that they would lose their matte quality shine after like a day or two, but hearing other people who received it in PR say that they really liked it and that it stayed matte for a while is really impressive. So I am looking forward to seeing that for myself eventually when I feel like wearing matte nails. So hopefully you can forgive me for not really testing out the longevity or anything. But like I mentioned earlier in the video, I am a big fan of their base and top coat already. Like they have really great staying power for me with no or like very minimal chipping. So I imagine I would have the same experience with this matte top coat too. But as always, make sure to leave me any and all thoughts that you have down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.